Greetings, students. I'm back for chapter 1.2. Just noticed a typo there. I have it as 11. Probably going to fix that at some point. Chapter 1.2, Keywords and Concepts. So for this one, we don't have too much because this is more about the history of sociology, which will be another little section here. But our first one, probably the most important, is the idea of a paradigm. And in sociology, a paradigm are a philosophical or a theoretical framework that's used within the discipline to formulate theories, generalizations, and experiments performed to further the study. So this is theory, right? This is the idea that we have ideas about how certain things work, about why people do certain things, why they operate the way they do if you are raising them in a certain way. These are our big framework theories, and we have more on our theories coming up. But when we talk about paradigms, we're also talking about theories, right? These are the frameworks, these ideas. And then a little bit more specific, we have different versions of sociology based on kind of what paradigms they're using, really. So we have quantitative sociology, and the key word there is quantitative. So quantify, you're actually putting things into numbers. These are statistical methods such as surveys with large numbers of participants, right? So you're using numbers, you're using vast human groups to study themselves, right? This is where you're getting things from census records, or you're getting data from algorithms on Facebook, that kind of thing. Huge pools of people to look at data, to look at numbers. This is the nerdy, geeky part, with the data, as opposed to qualitative sociology. The key word there being qualitative, like quality. And that's where you're really trying to get more information from an individual. So this is going to look like in-depth interviews, focus groups, analysis of lots of content, like books or movies or that kind of thing. So this, we're actually looking for human quality, right? We're actually looking for what are people doing with things? What is the individual trying to figure out? How is a specific person or people interacting with this thing? So you have trying to quantify in numbers, and then you have, quality, the kind of qualitative, where you're trying to actually understand an individual's motivations as opposed to just large, broad patterns. All right. So moving on from here, this was also the section that had the history of sociology. So in the history of sociology, we have basically 4 old dead white dudes that I am requiring you to learn. These will not be our only old dead white dudes, but they're pretty much all contained here. So we get through our old dead white dude section, and then we can move on with our lives, which is always nice. So let's start with our first old white dude here. The father of sociology, Auguste Comte. Yay! Born 1798, died 1857. He is considered the father of sociology, and yes, that is a picture of him right there. He is known for the concept of positivism. This is the idea that scientific study could be applied to social patterns. Nobody had really been doing this prior to this, right? Scientific study was about geology, it was about rocks and stars and physics and chemistry, the hard sciences, the stuff we can see. This was the first time somebody was like, hey, why don't we use these same ideas, the scientific method, all the things that we have, and apply them to people in society instead of just stuff. So that was his big contribution, his big idea. And he really believed that sociology could be used for the betterment of society. And you're going to see that a lot with our sociologists. These people are generally also looking to change the world. They're activists. They're really trying to make the world a better place. Sometimes they succeed, sometimes they do not, but we appreciate their efforts. So that's Auguste Comte. That's our first guy. Moving on from him to everyone's favorite, Karl Marx. I actually had a class refer to him as the poodle because of his hairstyle. I kind of enjoyed that. So think of him however you like. Now, this was the German philosopher and economist who wrote the Communist Manifesto. That's what he's most famous for. He kind of invented sociology, really, as a discipline of study. Auguste Comte was kind of the first to say, this is a thing we can do. Karl Marx was kind of the first to prove it could be done. Now, he diverged from Comte. He believed that, societies changed based on the struggle between different social classes and the means of production. So he said, hey, yeah, let's study people, but I have this theory that we can hang this study of people on. And that's where we get what's called conflict theory or critical theory. It's Marx's theory that all struggle, like literally all struggle in society, is based on social class and fighting over the means of production. Okay, so that's our second guy that we're learning for this particular chapter. Moving on, we get to Durkheim. That's not actually his name. It's what I call him as a nickname. This is Emile Durkheim, a Frenchman, lived in the late 19th century. He's credited with really establishing sociology as a formal academic discipline, not as an offshoot of something else, or, kind of being practiced by not professionals. He believed, because of where he lived and when he lived, that people rose to their proper place in society based on merit. He's the gentleman who gives us structural functionalism. As a result of that, basically, society functions as a series of interrelated and interconnected parts that have to function together. But his most famous work was Suicide in Society, where he actually studied suicide rates across different populations and was kind of proving how both in the industrial life kind of clashed with religion to cause this. And that was a fascinating work and was read by millions of people. So that's Durkheim. And then our last fella is Max Weber, 1864 to 1920, late 19th century again. He did some extraordinarily controversial work regarding the influence of religion on capitalism. So he was originally a conflict theorist. We do have a video coming up on Max Weber, so you'll learn a little bit more about him. He kind of disagreed that social scientists could objectively study society because, they were in society. So he didn't really think that they could be objective about their study, which he may have had a point there. So he was kind of the first that proposed that the biases of researchers should be considered in their research. So now when we're looking at some of this stuff and we criticize saying, well, he was limited by his class, his race, his experience in the world, that's what he's talking about, right? He's talking about how our own personal influences and how we think society works and how we were raised really does influence the work we do as sociologists. So that was his contribution. He kind of started giving us the beginnings of symbolic interactionism as well, and we'll learn that coming up in our video on Max Weber. So that's our section on the history of sociology. Sorry, that one was kind of long. They don't normally get quite this long, but that should cover everything from the history of sociology that we need to know from this chapter.